What's up guys, Joey Salads here, and today I'm going to make a different type of video. Because you see everyone's trying to get on the hate Jake Paul bandwagon. I'm going to respond to this new Jake Paul situation with zero bias. Just because I know him personally, don't let that factor into it. I'm just going to tell you guys what happened and how to look at it in a different way. Because everybody's just looking at it in this one-tone way, and I feel like people aren't deconstructing what actually happened and formulating opinions based off that. So the situation is Jake Paul hand-delivered Post Malone's order from Jake Paul's merch shop. Nothing is actually wrong with that. Jake Paul is actually obligated to supply the needs of transportation of shipping that merchandise, and he just decided to do it himself, which he's allowed to do. He's allowed to take Post Malone's address and go and mail it. How else is it supposed to go there? If Jake Paul was to then copy and paste the address of the order on Twitter, that's a different story. But he's allowed to do it, and I don't like to see these other YouTubers go and post a private policy and use it to try to take down Jake Paul and hopefully try to get the website to take his merch down. I know that's people have malicious intents like that on YouTube. What people are saying he did wrong was that he showed Post Malone's address. He showed the house and the cars and the license plate. So let's deconstruct that and see if it actually was harmful to Post Malone. So in the video you see Jake Paul drive to Post Malone's address. I mean, you don't see the full drive. He says it's a 45-minute drive. He gets there, you see a quick shot of the outside of the house, you see his cars, apparently you see a license plate. You don't see much else. You see a little bit of the block. So now from this video, how can somebody find Post Malone's address? We need to deconstruct that. They can do a license plate lookup. That's true. I know there are services that can scrub your public information from the internet, so it is possible that that license plate search would be useless because his information might be scrubbed from the internet. The only other way that would help you then is if you're a cop, and you could look it up in the database. Other than that, you can't find. And if you are a cop, you can just type his name in. So that knocks that out. It doesn't hold any weight. It's not a distinguishing factor to identify Post Malone's house in any other ways that you couldn't already have done before. Now people are saying, oh, but you see his house. Now you know it's within a 45-minute radius of Jake Paul's house. Okay, one of the biggest cities in the world in a 45-minute radius of Jake Paul's house. That now, as you search down, to about like 250,000 houses. What? They're like, oh, but they found Shia LaBeouf's flag with the sky patterns. That's Fortran. Listen, if you can find where someone's house lives based off of a shoddy vlog video in the middle of nowhere, then you don't need that video to find it. You can find it on your own using nothing but his name. You could sit me down with $40 and 1 hour search on Google and you could figure it out. You could find it somehow. Jake Paul went and was just recording Post Malone without any permission, and oh, it's a violation of privacy. When Jake Paul went, he said, here, I want to deliver stuff, and then like 30 seconds later he said, is it okay if we vlog? And he's like, sure, yeah, vlog. And they made a vlog together. If Post Malone had a problem with that, don't show my house, he would have said something. He didn't say anything. He would have been like, no, I don't want to be in a video. And Jake Paul probably wouldn't have posted the video at all. But because he went and Jake Paul knew he had the extra permission, he said, hey, is it okay if we vlog? And that's exactly what happened. Post Malone consented to the vlog. If Post Malone was actually super worried about his house, then he would have said, just don't show my house. Maybe Post Malone wasn't thinking because it was the heat of it was in the moment, which you really can't. I'm not blaming him for that, but in Jake Paul's mind, he got consent to vlog, so that's what he did. Now people are saying, oh, what if someone lived close by now because they see the vlog, they know Post Malone lives there. Yeah, you know who lives next to you. When you're neighbors with somebody, you already know who lives there. Think about everybody that's been to Post Malone's house, everybody that lives near Post Malone. Friends of friends took them to Post Malone's house and was like, hey, this is my friend, we'll hang out for a day. I'm sure hundreds of people already know where Post Malone lives. Just because you know where someone lives doesn't mean you're going to dox them. If anyone is already living in that area, they're already his neighbors. Most of them already know he lives there, and that doesn't mean just because one person knows you live there, you get doxxed. Does this Jake Paul situation classify as doxing? No, because still nobody has posted his address on the internet. There's no identifiable personal information in that video that will distinguish anything differently than what you could have already have done without that information. You can find Post Malone's address quicker without that information than finding it with that information. There are ways to find it, and you don't need that video. I can't even just try to come up with one viable solution, one viable circumstance where using only that video can you find Post Malone's address. And the only thing that people are coming up with, they can check Google Earth. How? I just said it's going to be between 250,000 houses and a radius of, what, 20 miles? The neighbors already know who lives there. That's not changing. License plate, unless you're a cop, that's not helping. Is that enough to classify as doxing? If I would have to say that's not doxing, I would consider it maybe a little bit irresponsible. That's about it. And the whole delivery thing, there's no problem with him delivering the merch at all. There's nothing wrong with that. So in conclusion, second conclusion, I want you guys to comment below what you think of this situation. Come up with scenarios on how somebody can find Post Malone's address with just using that video. It is easier to find Post Malone's address without that video than with just that video. Because the situations people are coming up with are like 4chan situations where you wouldn't need that video to find it. If you're a 4chan person who can find a house with flight patterns and star constellations, then you don't need this video to find it. I just hope I put this in a way that is different than how every other YouTuber is just jumping on the bandwagon and just to hate on him because it's the trending thing to do, and people need. There's some people on this site who they believe that Jake Paul's a bad person, and then the other ones are like they just want to take somebody down because that's their thing. They just want to take people down who are doing good. And I'm here just because this is just a different way of looking at it, and I feel strongly about this opinion on it because people aren't looking at it in this way. And I hope this opens up people's mind to look at things differently and deconstruct. So this means deconstruct and compare. After you deconstruct it and you compare, you realize it's not a big deal. Thanks for watching.